on locations throughout the world.
Standing passengers, please do not lean against the doors.
Picture goers, we bring to you new films of interest.
Chicago in State is next. Doors open on the left.
The miracle of the motion picture.
Please be considerate when talking on your phone or listening to electronic devices.
Chicago's a nice town if you're looking for pizza.
Welcome to 4 Stars, a Chicago film podcast, a podcast where we talk about movies set in Chicago.
Each episode, we'll be discussing a different movie that's set in or was filmed in the Chicago area, its cultural/historic relationship to Chicago, and whether it's a good representation of the city.
We want to figure out what makes Chicago movies different from movies about other cities, and to answer the question of what a Chicago movie even is. I'm one of your hosts, Jeremy Martyr. I'm the GM of the Heights Theater.
And I'm Paco Alvarez, a journalist based in Chicago. And on today's episode, we will be talking about 2008's Wanted, directed by Timur Bekmambetov.
Oh no, he just showed up behind you.
Starring James McAvoy, Angelina Jolie, Morgan Freeman, Common, and Chris Pratt, and I'm not going to pronounce the Russian actor's name because I'm
that guy though.
Yeah, he's really good. For the bulk of the conversation, we'll be joined by film critic Kyle Logan, who has written for Screen Anarchy and Chicago Reader, and is just generally a critic about town.
Before we get into that, Paco, do you want to talk a little bit about what was going on in the city in 2008?
2008. Many moons ago. So this movie came out on, the wide release was June 27th, 2008. And given the subject matter of the movie, I thought that the following news article would be interesting to talk about. The headline is from the Chicago Tribune, and the headline is Daley vows to fight for Chicago's gun ban. High Court throws out DC law. So essentially, I don't know if you know this. I didn't know this because I was too young to really pay attention. But from the 80s until 2010, Chicago had like a virtual gun ban on like almost every type of gun. They Mayor Jane Byrne passed an ordinance that bans the possession of handguns except for those that were already registered. So just like, unless you had a gun registered in 1982, you couldn't like register one. It's up for debate whether or not that actually had any, or like the effect that had on violence, because clearly the years following the gun ban and into the 90s were like some of the highest crime rates in Chicago's history. But I mean, it did probably lower the amount of people who were getting shot in terms like part of like household accidents and stuff. But so in 2008 there was this big case about this big legal case about whether or not Washington DC's gun ban was allowed by the Constitution, and the Supreme Court struck it down. And so I guess it's hard to think about now, even just like, I guess it's been almost 20 years, but like,
yeah,
pretty much until this case in 2008, like the reading of the Second Amendment as, establishing the right to like own a handgun or like own a gun wasn't like necessarily set in stone, like in precedent, like you could be a city and pass a handgun ban. And it wasn't like, it was just, there was like a different general understanding of what the Second Amendment allowed for. But with the 2008 decision, Heller, it essentially, I think it's Heller v. Washington, D.C. It essentially struck down the handgun ban in Washington, D.C. And this article is sort of about how Mayor Daley and other Chicago politicians were gearing up to defend the Chicago handgun ban because there was this guy, Otis McDonald, who was going to sue, or who had just sued the city, citing this new Supreme Court decision. And this McDonald versus Chicago eventually went up to the Supreme Court in 2010, and they struck it down, and now we don't have a handgun ban anymore. But you wouldn't know that there was a handgun ban if you watched Wanted,
No.
because that is pretty much the only type of gun they use.
I was gonna say that is a very pro-gun movie. I think you should be able to handle a gun if you can curve a bullet. That's my rule.
That's a good point. You have to get trained so much. You have to do the things that they did to James McAvoy to get a gun.
You know, we don't talk about it in the episode, and so I'm going to talk about it here. The only thing from Wanted I want is those like wax baths.
Yeah,
I need that so badly.
Yeah,
I need a deep cleanse and to just sit and just soak and bust out of it. So if we could get rid of all the other stuff and just have the wax relaxing baths, then I'm pro that.
I think we should have the giant textile weaving machines.
Oh,
that
yeah,
determine
those are
our
sick.
fate. I think that would be good as a society.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I agree. Well, I disagree with them controlling our fate, but I think it would be cool if we had those big weaving machines.
We didn't really talk about how this movie is very Waldorf coded in a certain way.
It is in many ways. And what Paco means by that is that we were all taught as a young age to curve bullets.
Yeah.
Is there any other stories you want to talk about?
No. Do you wanna give a plot description of the movie?
Sure. Wanted. We follow the office drone Wesley Gibson, you said? As he goes about his everyday life, his miserable slog of a life. You hear him describing how monotonous his life is. His best friend, who works at him in the office, is having an affair with his girlfriend. His boss is terrible to him. He's just miserable. And one day he's at the store and a guy starts shooting at him. And Angelina Jolie comes out and says, "Come with me if you want to live," or something. And basically is like, your dad was an assassin. He was recently murdered and, well, I guess not murdered, assassinated. And we are going to train you to become an assassin. He goes into this like underground scene of assassins that is in some gigantic Chicago castle, which definitely exists. Where you meet Morgan Freeman, who's the head of this League of Assassins, this fraternity. Which fraternity means guys, right? Or is that not necessarily?
Doesn't it mean like brotherhood? I guess that entails men. But yeah.
Again, I'm not judging.
Well, the fraternity went through some pretty big affirmative action initiatives following, the 1960s civil rights movement. So that's why.
That's that, and you know what? That's a really good point, and that is part of the movie. They do outline that in detail. Wesley trains to become an assassin, learning how to eventually curve a bullet. He basically gets fast heal powers, and there's some very innovative chase sequences. He's chasing down the man who supposedly killed his father. And yeah, that's all I'll say. Now off to our conversation with Kyle Logan. All right, I want to invite to the podcast local film critic for Chicago Reader and Screen Anarchy, Kyle Logan. Welcome on, Kyle. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about what I think is one of the few movies that really holds up since I saw it at 14 and thought it was fucking sick, bro.
Yeah, this is such a teenager-minded movie. I while rewatching it, I was truly trying to ground myself, not in where I am right now, but where I was when I did love this movie, because I did love this movie.
Yeah.
Kyle, I'm curious, why did you choose this movie as the one that you wanted to talk about? Like, does it have a special importance to you?
I mean, I think I kind of just like threw a bunch of stuff at Jeremy, and Jeremy was like, to how does Wanted sound? I think it's also I just like I sadly have not loved anything he's done in a while, but I'm like a Zack Snyder fan. I love 300. I love Michael Bay. I think Timur will, in time, be in the same conversations as those guys, as like one of the, great stylists and vulgar auteurs of the 21st century. So I don't know if Jeremy's seen me out here talking about how dumb action movies are good, actually, and was like, oh, that seems like something we can talk about for Wanted.
You being a true patriot, and you having a taste that can go from Magellan to Michael Bay is one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on, because someone who loves this movie but hasn't seen any other movies, I don't think I want to have a conversation with, but
Sure.
someone who can hold slow cinema and different types of
Curbing bullets.
yeah, well, they're in conversation with each other. uh so I'm excited to have you on, Kyle. Paco, when did you see this movie for the first time?
I think the other day when I watched it for this
That
podcast.
was the first time
I
you
think
watched
so.
this
I
movie?
thought I had seen it before on TV, and I've definitely seen parts of it. But like when the movie started, I was like, I have never seen this in my life. I really thought I had seen parts of it, but it was pretty much freshly new.
That's amazing. I've seen this movie like probably too many times. Paco has been friends with me, Kyle, since we were 14 years old, and can attest to the fact that my first screenplay that we had a class together that I wrote, I do think subconsciously was inspired in part by this movie. There was a lot of like talk of working in an office, like, oh, the grind of work, how horrible it is to work in an office, and how twisted that makes the inner workings of the American worker and stuff. And I was watching this movie again going, oh God, oh my God, this movie had such a grip on me, didn't it?
I mean, I think there's also, there's Fight Club, there's Office Space, there's American Beauty. There's a lot of Gen X movies about offices that we as millennials clung to, I think.
But what did I know about working in an office? I didn't work in an office. I
That's
still
true.
have barely ever worked in an office. But I found it very compelling to write a character who did. But you're
Sure,
right. It,
yeah.
it was definitely there was a mix of different movies that I was probably working from, since I had no
Yeah.
life experience.
I think this is definitely working from Fight Club at some level.
Yes.
Yeah,
The
definitely.
direct addresses, the last line of the movie, which really, really is so bad. But I don't know. I'm gonna speak for the room here. Pretty fun movie and solid rewatch. I don't know.
Yeah.
Dumb as hell, but
I'm
I don't know. I had a good ass time.
I maintained it was one of those movies that when I first got a Letterboxd, I was like, I think this is how I feel about this, even though I haven't seen it in years. And I put it at a strong 4, and it remained there. And I'm like, I am a 4 is very high for me. A 4 is like that's rare. I have friends who recommend things to me and are like, whoa, I got a 4.
Hey, you're on the right
So,
podcast,
yeah,
my
but
friend. There's a four
yeah.
stars.
I do love 4 stars. If I can
Yes.
give out 4 stars, that's huge for me. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think my like one line review was the misogyny really pops off, but the action still just rips. So sadly true. Which also I will say I distinctly remember when my friends and I had to do like a hey adult we don't know, will you buy us tickets to this R-rated movie, and snuck in to go see Wanted when we were 14, 15. The scene where he like goes to get his stuff from his apartment and Angelina Jolie like hears his girlfriend yelling at him, comes in and like really lays one on him. Some man in the audience in that moment of like slow-mo kissing yelled, "Shut her up!" And the entire audience abrupt, like burst into laughter as if it was the greatest thing. And so that also that I
That man was
distinctly remember
Timor. That man was Timor. No, that was.
Yeah. Honestly, maybe he snuck into that screening. He was, hanging out in LA for some meetings. Yeah. But I just like I have that memory of the communal experience of this movie, which just, really adds to the misogyny of the whole thing. But the action does just fucking rip.
I was very happy that when I went back to rewatch this movie that it looked as good as it did. I think I did a little bit of homework. I know you both watched and did different things, and we can dig into it in a second. But not everything that I rewatched from his I felt held up as well as this movie. The way that like even just the colors and some of the creative decisions on representing his inner mind when he's going through what his like assassin's predisposition. What
Like
do
the
you
panic
call
attacks.
that? The panic attacks that are actually just him because he's such an amazing assassin.
Oh.
But I do feel like this movie is right before an era that where where digital photography gets really ugly, where it really tries to start to replace film. But I don't know if you felt the same way.
I think it looks great. It certainly has that shiny sheen, which I know people can be pro or con, but I think for something that is a stupid action movie that's main focus is looking cool, that sheen really fits.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I guess like I'm trying to think when was it just like post Avatar when everyone started going like purely digital? Because like I feel like for a long time, or for not for a long time, but for like a few years, whenever movies were shot on digital in the 2000s, it was like a choice, and like they were interesting looking, and like they were trying to do something. And then I guess it was maybe post so around this time, post Zodiac, I feel like that's when people started to use digital more to try to like emulate film, and ends up looking a lot uglier. But with this movie, I thought I'm assuming it was shot on film, but I thought the way that I thought it looked good, like most movies from like around this time, just because it was shot in film. But I think also there's so much CGI, but I think that it was well used in the movie, and it doesn't like there are some scenes that look like a little bit like ugly, but like for the most part, I thought like it was pretty well blended, and like I was never like sometimes with like old CGI you can. Or it's often charming, but sometimes it can take you out of it. But with this movie, I didn't really feel like that.
Oh, the train, the like when they go to, I forget where they go to, European country, and there is that like whole train.
That's Schaumburg.
Okay, yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But you can see in like some of those wide shots, like, oh, the back half of that train is CGI, but like overwhelmingly, I think it still looks incredible, especially when that thing then like goes off the rails and it's like falling down this like crevasse. I was like, this looks really good, actually. Like, yes, I can see the seams, but like overwhelmingly, I'm shocked at how good this looks.
Well, let's start at the beginning, because I think the image that I thought of a lot as a kid was the slow motion bullet going through the forehead of like, like the final shot, but also in the beginning. That's something that I just like thought was so cool. And then I was watching this and I was like, that's pretty cool. I think that looks fake in a stylized and fun way. And I think it's a continuation of the style that Timur sort of started to develop with his original films. Do we want to talk a little bit about Timur Bekmambetov, and where his Bekmambetov? Thank you. I was practicing beforehand. Bekmambetov.
Yes.
Oh my God. Third time's the charm. Let's talk about Timur and a little bit about where his filmmaking came from, and his then bridge into American filmmaking.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so he's a Kazakh Russian, I think, and he started doing like commercials and stuff, which is kind of like I feel like he has a similar trajectory to other like American counterparts who like started in like music videos and like commercials and stuff, and like so they're very like heavily stylized and borrowing from like different aspects rather than just film. I was thinking of like watching some of his earlier movies, but they're like I think his first movie is about like the Soviet Afghanistan invasion in the 80s, but the movies from the 90s. But
Peshawar Waltz.
that's the name of the movie.
Mhm.
But I think the movie that shot him to fame was Night Watch from 2004, I think. Which
That sounds right.
which is I think it's based on a novel, or it's like it feels kind of like YA.
It's
But
based, yeah, like a whole series.
and you've seen Night Watch before, right, Kyle?
Yes, I rewatched Night Watch and for the first time watched Day Watch, and using this as an excuse to watch as much Timur directed and produced stuff. Yeah.
What would you guys think?
It's a lot of style. I was very overstimulated watching Night Watch, in a way that like I was sort of, oscillating back and forth between his later films and earlier films, and I was trying to like track, and at some point like what his style is, and at some point I just had to put that away and try to focus on what the fuck was going on, especially in Night Watch, where I was very confused a lot of the time. But again, kind of like the cacophony of what he's creating I started to appreciate it at some point. And it's coherent, and even though it's loud and there's a lot of it, there's a lot of style. I started to appreciate that style. Night Watch being this, centuries long battle between good and evil, millennia long battle between good and evil, that I thought was a very bizarre but watchable. Kyle, what is your Night Watch, Day Watch thoughts?
Yeah, so I did, after, being a teenager who thought Wanted was one of the coolest movies ever, I don't remember if I like actually bought a copy or if I just rented a copy. But I was like, oh, I have to watch Night Watch. That's apparently like, the cool movie this guy made before. And I guess I didn't like it enough to watch Day Watch until, 15 to 20 odd years later. So yeah, but I think it's one of those things like you were saying where you can see some of the pieces like that thing that happens I think twice in Wanted, where someone like jumps through glass and you can like perfectly see the shape of their face and all these little glass pieces. I think that shows up in Night Watch, and maybe also Day Watch. Honestly, the thing that I found most exciting about Night Watch on this watch was the subtitles. Like he had so much fun on this DVD release with the subtitle track. There's like wipes for the subtitles at one point when a vampire's like calling someone, telepathically. It's like blood drips in water. Like I was like, this is sick as hell, which is maybe not the greatest sign if what I'm most excited about is the work you did on the subtitles. But
But
like,
I mean, Kyle, that keeps in mind the idea that he knows that his films are going to travel. Like he has an American
yes,
audience in mind, and he had like Hollywood in his eyesights, right?
yes,
Like supposedly his movie he made before Night Watch was The Arena, which is like the remake of it's produced by Roger Corman and is a remake of a Roger Corman movie with Pam Grier.
yeah.
That's crazy. And he just, I feel like, there's this post-Soviet industry that is created of like what's happening in Russia, to, that like, how does it reflect global politics? There's this sort of, rekindling of relationships between a lot of the major players in Hollywood and a lot of the major players in Russia, and there's this like time period where they loved playing with the idea that like, oh, Russia, yeah, they used to be the bad guys, not anymore, they're our friends. And like you see that all throughout Hollywood action movies in the 90s and 2000s. And I think
Yeah.
that he is he's very aware of that in his filmmaking, and he's aware of the fact that he wants to make movies here.
Yeah, I don't know how involved you as a director are in your nation's choice for the Oscars, but Night Watch was apparently submitted as Russia's choice for international feature, or I
Wait,
guess
where
foreign.
where it won, right? It won.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah, yeah. I think by, the largest landslide in voting history and for the Oscars, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I would like to see at some point in Oscar history, like in the future, for them to release vote totals. So like if there is like I just want to see how many votes Night Watch got to see if it got a nomination.
how close?
How
Yeah.
close it was. Uh, but Paco, did you watch Night Watch as preparation for this pod?
Yes, I did. I watched Night Watch. I thought that I think you're right about like kind of I the kind of context of like Russia at the time, because like this was around when Putin was elected in like the late 90s, but this was around when like the US and Russia were kind of getting tight again, or not again, but for the first time, and there was like maybe talks of like I know that at some point Clinton and Putin talked about Russia joining NATO. Haha. And I do feel like this movie Night Watch is trying to maybe like I think it takes a lot from Hollywood blockbusters, and I think it's like trying to like do like kind of like a Hollywood narrative, almost like it's interesting. I guess this was right as a lot of I mentioned earlier that it kind of reminded me of like young adult fiction. This was right as like a lot of these franchises were kicking off, and it feels like this was like kind of like their attempt to like launch this like global franchise similar to like Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings or something. It wasn't entirely successful for me. I did think it was interesting, but I kind of wanted more. I kind of wanted it to be nastier. Like I wanted it to be more like Wanted.
Can I read a quote for you just because you brought up Putin?
Mm-hmm.
Did you read this quote that Bekmambetov said about Putin at the time in 2007?
Go ahead.
He said he compared Vladimir Putin to the film's Light Ones, saying light and dark doesn't mean good and bad. Dark means freedom and light means responsibility. And in real life, Putin for sure is a light one. He's trying to fix everything, make everyone organized somehow, but it's very bad for freedom. So there is literally a direct correlation between what he's talking about with Night Watch and Day Watch.
Yeah, I did actually. I did read that quote. That's really funny. Can you guys explain to me what the lore in Night Watch was? I know we're not a Night Watch podcast, but I truly did not understand what was going on.
Honestly, no, but I can. You can try, Kyle.
I mostly I think it's less interesting than the lore, which I do think, broad stroke, yeah, like you said, Jeremy, millennia long battle between light ones and dark ones. And I think they, on that bridge so many millennia ago, the battle was so evenly matched, they were all going to kill each other. And so one of them said, "Stop, we need to form a truce so we don't all kill each other." Truce is formed, but then year 2004, a special other, which actually, yeah, no, the lore is it's too much. There are others who are people who are not people who have magical powers, and in the year 2004, a special other will decide the balance of the world or something like that. And so then it's about who is the special one and which decision will they make, I
And then
guess.
Paco,
But
in the year 1820, then a little boy named Abraham Lincoln is born.
Oh, right.
And he is sorry, go ahead, Kyle. I cut you off.
I mean, no, I would also love to talk about that because I'm gonna say rips way too many fucking times on this. But the thing I was gonna say, I think more exciting or interesting than any of the overly complicated lore is the I think, Paco, like you were saying, these like ties and style to American blockbusters, because it opens with this like, millennia ago, this battle between good and evil, which is like feels literally ripped from Lord of the Rings. And also that battle that we see in the opening, lore drop for Night Watch is so clearly indebted to Lord of the Rings, like in its style of like the cameras in the middle of this, medieval battle. Um, and then a bit different, but same vibe. And I like laughed out loud when this character was introduced. But there's a character who's a shapeshifter who is introduced in their owl form. And my notes say, lol, he gets a taxidermied Hedwig looking owl, which is like that. I truly was like, oh wow, okay, so we're literally just like, oh, the kids seem to like this thing. Let's put that in there, which I'm sure the novel has an owl, shape-shifting figure. But the fact that they picked one that is, I don't know what kind of, snowy owl Hedwig is, but it is like so similar to that.
It's so interesting that his sort of commercialism or populism, right, of like trying to relate to what is popular right now, also is tied up in the aesthetics of like Danny Boyle movies, or like, I don't know, not even Danny Boyle, like Phone Booth. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, what if Lord of the Rings and, Phone Booth had a baby, and it's like so bizarre. Like I couldn't even think of a comp to what that movie is like. I was quite confused as to the tone of it, which I was enjoying. I was enjoying the fact that it was like switching tones every 5 minutes. But the main actor in it is really compelling, and he ends up being in Wanted later, as, I don't know, the heart of Wanted.
Maybe.
He's like such an interesting character in Wanted. Like when he dies in Wanted, it is really heartbreaking. The name of that actor being
Konstantin Kabinski.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's got a face.
Yeah, I think he's like I think he's very famous in Russia, partially as a result of the Night Watch movies. And I think he's probably been in just tiny roles in the United States the past few years.
One of those classic famous and home country things. So we have already done the 300 comp, and the Lord of the Rings comp for Night Watch, and I already did the 300 comp for Wanted. I do own both Night Watch and Day Watch. And on both of these, on Night Watch, there's a quote from Tarantino that compares this to Lord of the Rings. And the quote on the cover of Day Watch is attributed to someone whose name is written so small I cannot read it, but it says, rivals anything on display in Lord of the Rings, louder, faster, and meaner than 300. So like they sure were making those comps. Which also I think after having watched it, I was like, no, it is not anywhere near as mean as 300, which I think goes back to the thing you were saying, Paco, of these are movies about like vampires. They should go harder, but I think they don't go that hard because they're going for mass appeal, which clearly fucking worked, and he gets invited to Hollywood. So
is Daywatch good?
It's longer. And it does, this is important. It does a key, like the MacGuffin of Daywatch is the Chalk of Fate, which I was like, wow, back-to-back movies with a blank of fate as your MacGuffin is kind of crazy. Yeah, I would say it's like worth watching if you want to watch something that is fun and not great. There's a moment where a car like I think goes off of a highway and then drives along the side of a building, and that's pretty sick. There's an extended force femming via gender swap sequence,
Nice.
which I really enjoyed. Our main character is gender swapped with one of the like women lead characters for a while, and there's the classic like touches boobs, touches butt, oh my god moment. So it's like it's fun, but I would not say you need to rush out to watch that 2 hour and 20 long minute movie.
So they were
Well,
riffing
good.
off Scooby-Doo.
Exactly.
It says that on a much smaller font on the cover. I think this is the time to talk about Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, but we should not talk about Timur's next foray. We should save that for later. But Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter is one that I watched in preparation for this podcast, and I was I agree with you, Kyle, that his style and what he's going for is very fascinating. But I will say Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter has one of the worst lead performances I have ever seen in a movie. That actor, I am sorry that I forget his name, and I am embodying him so completely. He was making me lose my mind how wooden he was. While the movie was so bombastic and over the top. Like James McAvoy in Wanted is quite annoying, but he's purposefully annoying. Like he understands the vibe of Wanted. Whereas I was like, what is this performance?
I can't make any excuses for it, but I can offer some rationale of I do think it is meant to heighten the disparity of, this is a guy playing a president, so that's not fun, that's history. And vampires, look at all this crazy stuff. My guess is that it's meant to heighten that juxtaposition in a fun way. Does it work? Maybe not.
But I mean, I can't be totally mad at a movie where a vampire picks up a horse, throws it at Abraham Lincoln, who then recovers, gets on that same horse, and continues to ride in a stampede. So I can't be totally mad at Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
I have still never seen that movie, but I do think it's time for us to tell the story of when we were 16. Jeremy was a week away from his 17th birthday. We tried to sneak in to see Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. And they caught us pretty immediately because we had done the thing where we bought tickets to another movie and then snuck into Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. The other movie was, what's it called? Rock of Love? Or is that the
Rock of Ages?
Rock of Ages. Rock of Love is the TV show.
Was that at New 400?
No, it was at Regal Webster. I don't know if it was a Regal back then, but we got no one else had bought tickets to Rock of Ages, so it was just immediately clear that two teenagers had tried to sneak in, and it was funny because you were I think a week away from your 17th birthday, so you probably would have gotten us in if we had just waited. But then I never watched it, and then we walked out of Rock of Ages. That's the only movie I've ever walked out of, I think.
It was truly, we did the right thing, I think. Have you seen Rock of Ages?
I have not, but I fully believe you that you did the right thing.
But you seem to be gearing up for some Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter defense. And I'm sorry if I stepped on that by saying that Benjamin Walker, not a good name, by the way, was wooden. But there's a lot about that movie that I thought was pretty fun.
I mean, I don't have any specific defense. I haven't seen it since I watched it for the first time 3 or 4 years ago. I can't even remember what the rationale was. I think it may just have been that my ex and I were going through vampire movies and we're like, oh, this is a vampire movie that we found at, like the Brown Elephant for $1. And I was like, oh, and it's Timor, so like, let's do it. But I just remember having a lot of fun, being like, yeah, this is dumb as rocks, but like it looks sick. Like the extremely ridiculous, the moments of like blatant CGI in that movie are very cool. Like I think the effects in that are worse than they are in Wanted, but somehow that works. And maybe if I'm using the juxtaposition as the point as a semi-defense of the movie, I'll use that again. Of it heightens those moments of fantasticality, if that's a word. But yeah, I think it was just fucking cool. And any movie that like is fucking cool for however long, I think is a success. Because most of them,
I'm just happy that there's a movie that had the courage to tell the truth about our country, and that is that the South was a bunch of vampires. Anyway, we need to, I think, move on from Abraham Lincoln after I say that Mary Elizabeth Winstead is very good in the movie.
Oh, that's why we watched it. I was writing a thing about Mary Elizabeth Winstead's, like a listicle of her best shit, and
yeah, she's pretty good in it. And Rufus Sewell. Yeah, Rufus Sewell's good. Anyway, not the point. Wanted came out in 2008, and I feel like right at a time, I think, when production in Chicago was really ramping up. That's the same year as Dark Knight, and there's a lot of scenes that are very similar to Dark Knight. Paco, is this a movie that you remember shooting in Chicago at all during that time, or is that just something that you noticed while you were watching it?
No, I didn't. I didn't remember it. I guess some context for what you're talking about. I found a few articles from around this period about all the gearing up of production in Chicago at the time. So yeah, I think The Dark Knight was just like this huge movie. It was I think one of the biggest movies filmed in Chicago up until that point. I mean, it probably I actually wouldn't doubt if it continued to be the biggest movie filmed in Chicago at that point. Still, but this was I think in 2000. So both Wanted and The Dark Knight were filming in Chicago in 2007. And 2006, there hadn't been that many movies filmed in Chicago. And then I think in 2008, there also weren't that many. So 2007, for some reason, was like a huge year. And part of the reason was in past episodes, we've talked about how there have been like ebbs and flows of when movies are filming in Chicago and like why. And in the 2000s was really when Hollywood started like moving to other countries and like Canada and other places for tax breaks to like film there. And I guess at some point in the mid 2000s, Chicago started doing these like 1 year tax credits that essentially allowed that gave productions a 20% return on qualifying in-state expenditures. So just like 20% off essentially their taxes. And so there was
Buy one Dark Knight, get it Wanted for free.
yeah.
But only for a year.
Huh?
But these policies would be in place only for a year at a time.
Yeah. And so they'd have to keep passing them 1 year at a time. And I think it's simple. I'm not sure if they went past 2008 or like when they stopped happening. But at some point, like that was a big reason why there were a bunch of movies filmed in 2007 in Chicago. The other day, while I was looking this up, I kept sending Jeremy all these movies that just don't exist that were apparently filmed here.
Yeah, it was a pretty crazy list, and Paco and I have like a long running list of Chicago movies.
Sure.
And even the ones that Paco was sending me were ones that we hadn't somehow captured yet. And I was like, how have I never heard of this? Sean Bean movie that shot here.
Yeah.
It was bizarre, but I think that weirdly enough, like whatever bullshit reasons that a movie gets shot there, they did a good job in this era of actually shooting in the city and making sure the locations get talked about. Paco, the reason why I started talking about this was the original source material, the Mark Millar book or graphic novel. Did that take place in Chicago?
No, I don't think it takes place really anywhere. Do you want to talk about the graphic novel bit and Mark Millar?
I don't know that I want to talk about Mark Millar. The only thing I'll say about Mark Millar is I thought Mark Millar was canceled for being a sex pest, and then I had to check that, and that's not actually true. He just was pro-Brexit. But I think it says a lot that in my mind, before I checked it, that's what made people not like Mark Millar. So just on the, similar to the misogyny in the movie, there's a reason for that happening in the movie.
He's just he just writes incels into his work. He's not.
Yeah. I mean, the main, change beyond the lore, I would say, from book to movie is that book is way more racist. So I guess that's pro for the movie on that front. Like I wrote down a line at one point that was something. Oh yes. Leslie at one point says, "On my way home from work tonight, every Spike Lee extra in the entire fucking world will have spat on my back." So like
What?
real rough. But it does, which I'll take the Spike Lee as a segue. It does take place in New York. They do say that their like family basically is headquartered in New York.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, how much you want to do, because you have also read the book, Paco, right?
Yes, I read the book thinking it would help me understand the movie, and I guess it sort of did. There's some direct correlations, but they're pretty different. I do want to talk a tiny bit about Mark Millar, just because I think he's like, when I was like really thinking about it and like looking at what he's done, he's kind of like incredibly influential, and like a lot of what exists in like both comic books and Hollywood are like direct results of like his work. Jeremy, do you know anything about Mark Millar?
I know very little. I know that he wrote Kick-Ass and Kingsman or something, but I don't know. I haven't read a single thing. I'm not tapped in.
Yeah. So Mark Millar was kind of he so like Alan Moore and like Frank Miller,
Yeah.
who were like they were these guys who like grew up on like old style, like old fashioned comic books, like in the 50s and 60s, and then like in the 80s kind of like started making like this cool shit like postmodern like reflections, very philosophical reflections of like what comic books were like and their relationship to the culture. Mark Millar is kind of a generation of comic book people who grew up with Alan Moore and Frank Miller. And so like they're sort of like they're like there's like Tarantino, and then there's the guy who made the Boondock Saints, and he's kind of like the guys who made the Boondock Saints of comic books up to a certain extent. I think he's like maybe a little bit better sometimes, but he started off as sort of like more of an indie creator, and then he made a bunch of comics. He started working with DC, I think, at first, and then he was one of the writers who was tapped to help launch the Marvel Ultimate Universe, which is like in the 2000s comic books. There's so much lore behind them. They wanted to like for Marvel, they wanted to like revamp into making comics. They wanted to like write a line of comics that like anyone could buy and like understand. And so Mark Millar was one of the guys who helped revamp the X-Men and the Avengers into the Ultimates, or the Avengers became the Ultimates. And like pretty much like the movies of the Avengers are like pretty much 1-to-1 like what he wrote, essentially. Like the thing about like he made Nick Fury look like Samuel Jackson. And then when they were making the movies, they were like, I guess we got to get Samuel Jackson for this. Like he did
That's
that.
amazing.
So he was like very like influential. And then he made his own kind of like line of comics called the Millar World, starting with Wanted. And Wanted, it was sold essentially as like Watchmen for villains. So in the world of Wanted, it's like they're not like assassins, they're like supervillains. They're all supervillains. And they like belong to a world where like all the supervillains got together and killed all the superheroes and just like remade the world theirs, and that's why they can get away with everything. So it's like it was a superhero comic. And then Kick-Ass and Kingsman also take place in the same universe. So like this is like the same universe as Kick-Ass.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Wait, I'm sorry. So, what are you talking about? So, Kick-Ass and Kingsman are those connected? I've seen Kick-Ass. I've never seen any Kingsman movie. What are those superheroes? Are the Kingsmen superheroes?
They are in like the Mark Millar world, I guess. It's more just like all the real superheroes are gone. So what replaces them are like, I guess, like the Secret Service and like random kids and stuff. At some point I only read Wanted. I liked Kick-Ass in high school, and I think he's like generally I think he's just like he's really awesome when you're in high school because he's like edgy and he's like really
when you're a high school boy, I think.
Yeah, especially
when you or into art created and curated for high school boys.
Yes, definitely.
No matter what gender you are. But I do think that there is a feeling that is a little rancid about his work, that feels like it aged very poorly, that is now like very interesting to go back and look at when it comes to this movie. But I don't think I'm going to be watching Kingsman anytime soon. Kyle, did you think that about the book when you read the Wanted book?
Yeah, I mean, I think I talked to you about this when we initially talking about Wanted, Jesus, like months ago, that I owned the book for a very long time, and I wasn't sure if I had finally gotten rid of it in one of my trips to Myopic, and I had, which makes sense because getting it from the library and rereading it, I was like, yeah, this is it's gross. Like it is the racism really pops off, the misogyny really pops off. The like last line of the book is something that I'm not even sure I want to say on the podcast. I don't know if you remember what it is, Paco, but it's basically like about Wesley, so the movie has What the Fuck Have You Done Today? the book has something about him sexually assaulting you, the reader.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah.
So, like, it is truly like 13-year-old edgy bullshit. Which is also, I will say, like, off of the, he's a creative child of Frank Miller, if you will. Not to blame Frank Miller for him, but I also just recently reread some Sin City stuff, which is like extremely edgy, but it doesn't feel like bad. I don't know if this makes any sense. I mean, as someone who is into edgy bullshit to some people, transgressive art to others, I do think there's like a very fine line there, and it does just come down to vibes a lot of the time. But Millar is so far into the edgy bullshit side of that.
Yeah, I think Mark Miller, no, not Frank Miller is like literally a fascist, but he's smarter, and like I think he's just like read more, and like I think he has like more of a perspective, and I think Mark Millar, he's kind of just like edgy for edgy's sake a lot of the time. And like I mean there's some stuff that he's done that is like generally well regarded. He did this famous Superman comic called Superman Red Sun, which is like what if Superman was in the Soviet
I've
Union.
read that.
Yeah.
That was one that you recommended to me, Paco. I'm not a comic book reader. This is like the Bears episode, but reversed for Paco and me, where I just know a lot about it and Paco can check out. And for me, I'm like, you start talking about comics and I start getting very overwhelmed and overstimulated, mostly because they're so complex, like the different runs and the lore and the worlds and the world A and world B, whatever.
Yes.
But I have read Red Sun because Paco was like, you'd like this one. And I did quite like that one. So it's interesting to hear that he wrote that.
Oh, well, I apologize for saying it's fine then. If both
No,
of you
I don't have anything to compare it to. I just know that one was one that I was like, oh, like I have never liked Superman before. Like this is one where I'm getting into it, and then I started digging into that. But sorry, keep going. So he wrote some of these. He worked sometimes with DC and Marvel, and then sometimes independent.
Yeah, and he did the really famous Civil War storyline in Marvel, which was later made into the Captain America Civil War movie. So he's just been kind of like, he's super influential secretly. I mean, like the Kingsman movies are somehow super big. There's I only read Wanted, but there is, I think at some point he does a crossover in the comics with Kick-Ass and the Kingsman. So there is a potential that will happen in the future. Maybe the Matthew Vaughnverse will will bring them all together.
Now there's the Matthew Vaughnverse where Vaughn is bringing in his, because I don't think Argyle is a Millar original, but spoilers for Argyle. The ending of Argyle reveals that it takes place in the Kingsman universe. So like now Millar is such a franchise that it's going beyond him, and shit that Matthew Vaughn, who has made most of his career off of adapting Millar, is making, bending his original shit so that it fits into Millar world.
As someone who's never seen any of these things because they look really bad from the second they came out, isn't there a thing at the end where they reveal that they create? Is it like Hitler or Stalin or someone?
I also haven't seen it, but it's in they made, I think it's called The First Kingsman or something, like the one about them starting out in World War One.
Yeah.
And it ends with a post-credit scene of, I think, Lenin reaching out to Hitler or something. Like they're like
Lenin working with Hitler, not Stalin. Yeah. So again, I'm so happy that someone is talking about, has the courage to talk about history the way that it happened. No, it sounds like some bullshit. Matthew Vaughn, what is up with that guy? Is he someone who in 20 years someone's going to be like, the late style of Matthew Vaughn is the reason why I became a filmmaker or something?
Definitely.
You think so?
Yeah. I just like, I don't know. Sometimes I'm like watching a movie that like I've reclaimed from like the 2000s or something, and I'll just like for a second I'll like think, and I'll be like, I like this shit. And I just feel like
name names. What are you talking about?
I mean, like, I don't know, kind of with Wanted. I don't know. There's like where I really enjoyed Wanted, but there were parts of it where I was like, this is what I'm enjoying right now. I think that yeah, I feel like Matthew Vaughn will I don't know. There's a lot of people are like reading and watching movies less and less, that I think that like these franchises will take over people's like as cultural touchstones, unfortunately.
Well, that's a broader depressing conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Did he do X-Men First Class?
Yeah, this is the thing, is his best movie is an X-Men movie.
Because I like
So
that movie, but
which I think speaks to kind of talk about what you're saying about it's going to be the franchises. I don't know that anyone will remember Matthew Vaughn's name, but they will know the X-Men. They will know the Kingsman. They
Who's
will know Kick-Ass. So, which also, that is, speaking of the like, I like this shit. I think I had Kick-Ass again, when I first made a letterbox, hadn't seen it in years. I think I put it at a 3.5. I tried rewatching it for a Nick Cage thing I was doing like 2 or 3 years ago, and I made it halfway through before I bailed. So like, real wow, I liked this shit moment for me on Kick-Ass.
yeah.
But Wanted is a step above. I think it's like it still has those rancid vibes while also just being like cool and like fun and like, I don't know, maybe I'm just a simp for Chicago, but just the way that they shoot the city is really fun, and I love that there's a castle in the middle of the city. Like, and let's maybe talk about Chicago now, because or talk about Wanted, not talk about Chicago. So Wanted is this sort of riff, like we were talking about with Fight Club and these like sort of worker drone movies of like the break out of your your shackles of capitalism and really reclaim your life style movies. And it's featuring James McAvoy as
Wesley Gibson. Come on, man. You don't know
Wesley
Gibson?
the Wesley Gibson. No. Who has a horrible boss and a terrible best friend who's sleeping with his terrible girlfriend, and the movie, I don't know if you picked up on this, doesn't like that his boss is fat and doesn't like that his girlfriend talks a lot. It's very subtle that the movie seeds that in there. But it's sort of revealed slowly that that the world that he lives in and has his panic attacks in it's not what it seems. That there's this underbelly of a world of assassins that's out there waiting for him.
Yes. I do want to point out something. I don't know why they changed it exactly from supervillains to assassins. I guess like maybe I guess like this was before the superhero boom, because like if they made the movie now, it would definitely be like all supervillains. But I guess this was right when like they still weren't sure if like just having superheroes is gonna automatically make a movie great, so they changed it to assassins. I do want to point out that in the comics, Wesley Gibson looks. They modeled him after Eminem, so the entire comic experience is you reading about Eminem.
Yep.
Parker just sent me the last frame of the comic, and I don't like it.
Yeah, it's
I don't
bad.
like that at all.
It's really fucking
That
bad.
sucks.
Which I will jump from last frame of the comic to first line of the movie. The first line of the movie is, oh god, I wrote it down. Can I find it? It's my anorexic boss's birthday. That's the first line of the movie.
And this is the vibe of the movie we're saying rocks.
Yeah. Well, so then that's my first note, and my last note here that I have, which I think speaks to something we were saying earlier. I don't know. Oh, also the switch from supervillainy to assassins allows them to be good guys, because the fate thing, the lore there, it's like the loom tells us who to kill, and we go do the loom's will, and somehow it didn't get them to kill baby Hitler, but it's basically along those lines of like the loom will get us to kill the bad people before they do a bad thing. So whereas in the graphic novel, he is joyously sexually assaulting people. So I do think the switch helps make them actually quote good guys.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But the other thing that I wanted to say on the it rips front is just how like wholeheartedly it wants to be cool. I don't know if y'all saw this comparison coming, but I don't know if either of y'all have seen Final Fantasy VII Advent Children.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, great. Thank you, Paco.
I shook my head.
Come on,
Uh,
man.
Final Fantasy VII Advent Children also fucking rips. It is another movie that is like so earnest about wanting to be cool. And I think that like while yes, Wanted has this like rancid like misogyny to it, it is also so like, look at me, think I'm cool. And there's something sweet to that
Hmm.
actually. Um, and that it has that earnestness of wanting you to think it's cool, and then also does genuinely offer some shit that is very cool.
Yeah.
And so it was a weird thing for me watching these two movies that I hadn't watched since I was a teenager and being like, yeah, these are both trying so hard, but also succeeding. And the fact that they are trying so hard makes it kind of cute.
Yeah. I mean, it has a lot of like fourth wall breaks, but it doesn't have like the annoying like winking thing. It does wink at the audience, but not in like an annoying way, if that makes sense. Like I think you're right that I think it's because of the earnestness of like wanting to be cool, as opposed to like, I feel like a lot of movies now, this would be played by like Ryan Reynolds. Like, I feel like his whole thing is kind of riffing off this type of movie, but like making it like being embarrassed that it wants to be cool, as opposed to just like earnestly wanting to be cool. And I think like that makes a big difference on like how you end up absorbing it.
It's more confident in
Hmm.
its yeah thing. I do think that like Timur is a nerd, but a nerd for different things than what modern movies are, or even what Mark Millar is interested in. Is it Miller or Millar? I keep saying
Millar.
is Millar.
Yeah.
He I feel like he's interested in these like deep, like foundational stories of like good and evil, right? Like day watch, night watch shit. He's interested in these like decades spanning, millennia spanning wars that are being fought, and that is a different style of nerd. And I think it's interesting that he's never done a comic book movie, or I'm sorry, a superhero movie, right? Despite like adapting Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, or what are some other things that he's done? It's just like he's interested in these like very nerd adjacent things, but also will not, and like you're saying, like he's like referencing Hedwig in his early work, but he's like the most important wave, or the most like financially sure wave of Hollywood's, like when he's been in Hollywood, is the superhero movie, and he hasn't gone down that road. I wonder if he just doesn't fuck with it. Like, I wonder if he's just not interested in that style of story, and he'd rather be focused on like what's on our computer screen.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that's the thing. I think he becomes, maybe not becomes, but his work becomes more honest about his primary nerdery being form.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I don't know if that's a can of worms we want to open right now,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I mean,
I'm putting the can of worms back down. I shouldn't have picked that can up.
okay, all right,
Um,
okay.
but I do think like he is an interesting ish director. I don't think I'm where you're at with him, because I just saw a movie called Mercy, but I think that um uh I think that this movie like has a bunch of things in it that I am like, oh, like we don't have this anymore.
Mhm.
Um it also, like, I think that the main image of curving a bullet is legitimately cool. I'm like, that is awesome. I like, my teenage boy in me is just still saying that curving a bullet is cool. I don't know.
I do
Sue me.
Yeah, I do feel like this is kind of his superhero movie though. Just I mean
I
one.
I know what you mean, Paco, but what I mean by that is like he literally had a source material that was spandex wearing superheroes, right? And he changed it to be assassins. It's like he has an aversion slightly.
I mean, who knows how far along in development it got to him. I don't know that he changed it. I don't know that he didn't either. But I think I
That's fair.
think the I think the point stands that he, made it to Hollywood in 2007, or in 2008 rather, which is literally the year of The Dark Knight
And
and
Iron
Iron
Man.
Man,
Mhm.
and since then has not at any point made a superhero movie. Like I think your point stands that there are choices being made there that I'm sure he's gotten offered shit and said no thank you to.
But Wanted has like so many different things in it that I think we could dive into. One of them being, I think, uh, Angelina Jolie as like a an action star. I think she's pretty remarkable in this movie. I think there's a conversation that I've had multiple times at work, at the Music Box, as well as with friends, and I've also heard other podcasts and places talk about it. But within like Angelina Jolie is like one of the most famous actresses on the planet, and it's actually very hard to say what her best movie is. Like it's pretty hard to like nail down like what movie she got famous for, or what movie is her best work, or what she it's because she's more famous than the movies that she's in, is my sort of feeling on it. But watching this movie, I was like, oh, she is such an engaging screen presence.
Yeah, I think speaking to that, I was kind of thinking during the movie, like, is there any good movie that she's in? Not to say that she's bad in them, but like she's pretty much good in every movie that she's in. But like, has she ever been in like a really like amazing movie?
Like a 10 out of 10. I'm not saying like has she ever been in a 7 out of 10. Go ahead, Kyle.
Stop, and we need to stop having this conversation. We'll come back in 2 hours after you two have watched Girl Interrupted, because I'm upset right now.
No. Okay. That's a good call. That's one that people say. Girl Interrupted is one that people say, right? There's a few others that people throw out, but it's do you say Girl Interrupted is a 10 out of 10?
I do not, but a 10 out of 10 for me is like incredibly difficult to get to.
It's a 4. Like you're saying, it's a 4.
It's a 4, which is again very high for me. It's a 4. I think I have 60 movies out of the 6,000 I've seen that are.
I've
10 out of
seen
10.
Girl Interrupted. I don't remember it. I thought Winona Ryder was in that movie. Is Winona Ryder in that movie?
Yeah, she's the main one.
Yeah, Winona.
Yeah, and I've seen Gia. I've seen like some of the earlier ones. I didn't think Gia was very good. There's like some earlier movies that she became famous for. Like I rewatched the Tomb Raider movies, and I thought those stunk. Like I really liked them when I was a kid. And I thought she was so cool, and all like the iconography of the Lara Croft was so interesting, but I was so bored rewatching those movies. So Girl Interrupted is a very good answer, Kyle. But I think outside of that, considering her fame, you would expect that's like an early indie hit that you have that launches you to fame.
Yeah, I was more taking issue with Paco's, which I know Paco said 10 out of 10, but I was more taking issue with the has she been in any great movies? And I will argue Girl Interrupted is a great movie. I think the no one can pin down what movie like made her a big deal, which again, I do think Girl Interrupted is in that conversation, but it is more nebulous because she does then become this like action star.
Yeah. Did any of you stand for Changeling, which also came out this year?
Have not seen.
Well, I just think she has such a weird career. Like it's very bizarre. I don't know. I feel like, do you like Hackers? Like, do you like,
Hackers is fun. Would say Hackers is a good time. Yeah.
Yeah, I like plenty of her performances. It's just like, I guess like other than Girl Interrupted, it's just like hard for, I was just like, when I was looking at her filmography after watching Wanted, I was sort of like, oh, of course I'm going to remember this like ultra famous, hugely praised movie. And it was mostly just like Mr. and Mrs. Smith, like Maleficent, like just like stuff that like, yeah, like they're really big, but like
The Eternals.
Yeah.
I will also argue that both Maleficent movies are good, so we don't need to get into that.
Okay.
I think also part of the problem of Angelina Jolie, that sounds, I don't know, bad, but I think like narrative wise, is that like her and Brad skyrocket to fame because of the story of Mr. and Mrs. Smith more than they already were. Like they're both already movie stars at that point, but then they become like tabloid stars.
Yeah.
And also like that is not a movie where either of them are, acting in any way. They're both just being movie stars in that movie. And I rewatched it within the last few years since like things have come out about that relationship and about their family life, and it is extremely hard to watch. So would not recommend doing that, but it is still like a showcase for them being movie stars that then I think despite how like movie star those performances are, it's the tabloid stuff that, becomes the narrative for a very long time. And given the misogyny, which hopefully we're not touching upon too much, but we do live in this world. I think Brad gets away from the tabloid shit pretty quickly and unscathed, and I think it hangs on to her for a long time.
Definitely. Yeah. I don't say that to dismiss the work of Angelina Jolie. It is something that I struggle with because I do like her as a movie star. I want to like the movies she's directed, and I really don't. There's like I'm rooting for her. Like I liked all of the God, what's the name of the director? Pablo Larraín movies before Maria. You know what I mean? And then I didn't like Maria, and I was like, this is where I hop off at this point. Are you serious? So it was a thing that I'm really waiting for that person to come in and give Angelina Jolie that lead performance where it's a 10 out of 10 and it's like an undeniable thing, and we can all give her much deserved flowers. Because otherwise we just have to think about Salt and The Tourist, and I'm sorry, you're much beloved Maleficent. But it's interesting because I think she's really good in Wanted. I think the move at the end of the movie, not to just jump to the end of Wanted, where she curves the bullet around a circle, killing everyone, and then herself, I think hits because of like her performance in that scene.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is it is a good example of having her and Common in the same room, where I think Common is not a very good actor. Chicago-born legend.
I was just going to say, he's there for Chicago.
Chicago-born legend and a great rapper and really good in those Capital One commercials. But I think it's really the difference between an actor and a presence. When she can sell in that moment that she's making that decision and you feel it, because it's a very goofy thing. Like you have these like incredible assassins who are known for curving bullets, and they all stand in a circle. Like it is a pretty stupid decision. If like you'd want to be staggered, right? Because you can't. Whatever. I don't need to argue geometry here. But I do think like she sells like the development of Wesley as a character, that she's with him, the need to push him, the turn from the league or whatever they're called to being
The fraternity
to being villains. She sells being on board with that because of her cause. And then the reveal at the end that they've all their names have come up, and she's like, well, then we all got to die. I think that's an Angelina Jolie thing. If you have a someone who's not as strong of an actor in that role, you're not as convinced.
Yeah, I mean, I think she like pretty much made like the fact that she signed on board pretty much made the movie, just in terms of like getting studios on board. And she was like a major part of it. Apparently, she also liked Night Watch and wanted to work with Seymour. But yeah, I think her performance is really good in this. I think she lends it a star quality. I wish that her character was a bit more developed for her performance. I think like part of it is that she I don't know how involved she was in like script decisions, but like she purposely made the decision to be more silent and be more of an icon. I saw an interview with her where she mentions like she had just worked with Clint Eastwood on Changeling, and so she feels like she was kind of tapping into that Clint Eastwood kind of like just like being like you're in the room and you're not talking, but like everything is about you anyway. And I think that's kind of her role in the movie.
Can you imagine if Clint Eastwood directed this movie?
Yeah, it'd be.
I think the father-son stuff would be better.
Yeah.
Certainly richer, yeah. I watched a little bit of behind the scenes stuff, and producer Mark Platt says, for the character of Fox, all of us had in our minds Angelina Jolie, and then he says some shit which I don't love. Few women actresses who have the physical strength and skill to pull something like this off. Which also is where I want to know that Fox in the book is black.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And she's modeled after Halle Berry.
Which I was gonna say, yes, like is very clearly a Halle Berry influence on the art style. So it is an interesting choice that for when they do the Marvel shit, they're like, oh, he, made it look like Sam Jack. We have to get Sam Jack. And for this, they were like, nah, we don't have to.
I'm
get
sure
Halle.
they asked Halle Berry, no?
I have no idea. I didn't look
Yeah.
that far into production.
I don't think
Someone
so. 'Cause
text Seymour.
yeah, I'm not sure.
I think Mark Platt is telling the truth there when he says they wanted Angelina Jolie immediately.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's like, who knows? But I would
that would
not
be
be
the first
surprised.
time. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's very fair. But given that she is, a star and is like, I think at that point, her name is everywhere for, maybe not great reasons. I do think it makes perfect sense that if you're trying to get your, dumb action movie funding, you try to get a major movie star, which I love Wanted. We will talk about how vile a movie is forever, but like I do love this movie.
I love this
And
movie.
I
I
am
really
still
like this
shocked
movie.
every time.
Yeah.
I'm still shocked every time that Morgan Freeman is in this movie. So
Yeah. And he has the line read of the movie. I think his line read was
shoot this motherfucker.
shoot this motherfucker. It is truly like Morgan Freeman excellence in that moment of him to deliver it the way he does. I mean, Morgan Freeman, to shift gears to Morgan Freeman, I think for many people, the rise of many people our age, I don't know, you're either like a Shawshank Redemption Morgan Freeman or God Morgan Freeman in Bruce Almighty. Like for people our age, I know for people who are older, there's plenty of different richer roles that he played. But I think in the pop culture consciousness, Morgan Freeman represents God to a lot of people. And that sort of gravitas, that automatic gravitas that he brought to performances, he was able to lend to thousands, it feels like, bad movies. And he would just like show up in a movie and give it like 15 minutes of gravitas and get a paycheck.
Do you think he was running back and forth between this and The Dark Knight? Because they were filming in
interesting.
Chicago at the same time. Like, do you think?
Oh, I never considered the Lucius Fox of it all. Wait, is Angelina Jolie's character's name Fox?
Yes.
Yes.
And anyway, sorry.
And he's Lucius Fox. Whoa. Something there.
Oh, there's nothing there. Bro's cooking with nothing. Go ahead. Sorry.
Damn, he's old as fuck. He's 88.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Did he get soft canceled? We don't need to talk about that. But
He got, I think, hard canceled, and everyone just
Hard
kind of ignored it.
moved on. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
As we often do. Yeah. I was gonna say to do Chicago talk. It is so I watched that behind the scenes thing that I found on YouTube by searching like wanted Chicago behind the scenes or something like that. And I know you asked Paco this, Jeremy. I don't know if you have any memories of them filming in Chicago, but there are so many like 15-second, 30-second, 10-second things on YouTube from 18 years ago of people on their shitty flip phones filming the filming of Wanted around Chicago, which is like really cute and beautiful, and I don't know, made me smile that people took those 10-second videos, uploaded them to YouTube, and 18 years later they're still there.
I love that. I do not remember them filming this in Chicago. I do remember them filming Dark Knight in Chicago. And the fact that I don't even think when I watched Wanted, I clocked that it was Chicago. Like now watching it, I'm like, oh my God, how could you not? It's so Chicago. But I think in like the moment, that wasn't the thing I was thinking about when I was watching it. I mean, maybe because it feels so mythic and they literally, I mean, something that I like about, just to talk about the Chicago-ness of this all, it is an interesting choice to be like, this is a textiles-based fraternity. where is the textiles like capital of America? It is Chicago. Like, it's interesting to be like the labor history of Chicago and being like the tanneries and the textiles did kind of come through Chicago. So it's interesting if they thought about that. It probably was a tax situation like Baca was describing, but I like thinking about that now.
Yeah, I do like that their headquarters is on an island in Chicago that has a castle on it.
Yeah. It's at the Chicago Castle. You've never been to the Chicago Castle?
Yeah. The Chicago Textile
Right,
Castle.
that's right next to the L, and you can just like jump from the castle onto the train.
Of course. We've all been there. This is old hat. You go to the castle and you get off the orange line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very bizarre. I do like how they use the city. I like the use of the L. Where Wesley's house is, it's right off of Clark and Newport and Sheffield, where my favorite restaurant in Chicago is, Penny's Noodle House. And there's a bar there that you can't see Penny's, but you could see the bar, O'Hagan's Bar, which just shut down in the past year or two. I love that they use that location. I know it very well.
Yeah, I do think it is like, I think it's one of those things that you were saying, it's, maybe you don't notice it when you're not watching for it, but when you are watching for the Chicago-ness of this movie, it like slaps you in the face immediately. I think like after the also, I lied earlier when I said the first line of the movie. That's Wesley's first line in the movie because we have that
the
preamble.
whole opening.
But I think after that preamble, like the thing that starts Wesley's story is the L going by and like him waking up to the sound of it. And then he like gets up for work and a Nine Inch Nails song is playing as he walks under the L. Like it's so. I know Nine Inch Nails is not from Chicago, but like it all feels very here. And I know I've talked to you all about or at least I've talked to Jeremy about how the FBI investigated a perceived snuff film that made its way from Chicago to Ohio or Indiana, and then they located it to Chicago because of someone recognized the L, and it was just like a fake snuff thing that Nine Inch Nails made because it was the late 80s and that's what they were doing. But so that made it feel, that's my extremely long way to get the why Nine Inch Nails feels Chicago in the movie.
That's Kyle, thank you for this. That is amazing.
You're so welcome.
I forgot that you told me that at the Music Box one day, and I'm very grateful that you brought this up because I told myself that day I was going to do research on it and I didn't. I went home. So thank you for bringing up the Nine Inch Nails snuff video. But I think that
it's like a 10-minute hard target video that is up on YouTube. You can find it. It's great.
There is a lot that feels Chicago. I mean, other than James McAvoy, who is doing an accent in this movie that is bizarre. I'm American. He's hitting his vowels so interestingly. I think McAvoy's great in the movie, but that accent is bizarre. It's so weird.
He had done some. He was in Band of Brothers, I think. He'd done some like other American productions where he had vocal coaches, and he decided not to have one for this movie.
It would have been funny if he had like a full-on Chicago accent.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I was like, he's probably like a transplant who moved here, but
what are your guys' vibes on McAvoy generally?
I am a fan. I will say I don't know how much of me being a fan is due to this movie and him, ending up being cool, and also the specific moment where he comes out of the shower shirtless.
Yep.
I did not, fully come to terms with my bisexuality until within the last decade-ish or less than that even. But there are things that I can point to that stuck in my brain that maybe were signs of that.
I am noticing.
And his upper body when he walks out of that shower lodged firmly in my brain. So I think that is part of why I have been a McAvoy fan for so long. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think I think it's one of those things where like even when I don't like the choices he makes, I like that he makes choices. Like I don't know if either of y'all have seen Filth. I don't think it's actually great, but I like that he was like, yeah, I have Hollywood money. I'm in the X-Men movies, but I'm gonna go make this like Irvin Welsh adaptation. So yeah, I don't know. I think he does big things. Jeremy, we can't have this tangent go too far, but I think his performance in Split is like genuinely Oscar worthy. I think he's
Yeah.
fucking incredible in that movie.
Do you know that he was a last minute
Yeah,
replacement on that movie?
I did not. Who
He
was he
had like
replacing?
3 weeks to replace Joaquin Phoenix or something. There was like that was
Oh
one
my
of the
God.
roles that Joaquin, who had worked with M. Night on Signs,
And Village.
and The Village, exactly.
Yeah.
He dropped out of. I have no article in front of me proving this, but this is something I had heard. That Paco, you're gonna put a gunshot here if it's wrong, and a yay if it's correct. But he had not a lot of time to prepare for that role, and learning that later, I had a profound appreciation for that performance. Split, I think, is a very, very good movie, but not one that I like go back and rewatch a lot. Glass is a movie I'm obsessed with, and I love McAvoy specifically in that movie. I know it's less of like a featured role, but I think that character is better not as the featured role. For me personally. And I think a worse actor, I think Split would have been a lot harder to swallow. I think Split is a lot like thornier movie. It's like it's playing with more transgressive stuff, I think.
Yes.
Which I like
Yeah.
about it, and I like thinking about it now, but the act of watching it's a little hard. And I think that McAvoy is up to the challenge of making that role interesting. And I think a lot of the McAvoy performances, I think he elevates movies constantly. There was that remake of that movie from what
Speak
was
No
that?
Evil. Yeah, I did
Speak
not
No
see
Evil.
it, but I was very curious. That's another thing where I'm like, do I want to watch this for him because I love him? And I might eventually because I also love Mackenzie Davis. So like I'll probably get around to it.
It's not
But
good, but like,
yeah,
it's
but choices.
choices.
Yeah, I love McAvoy generally. I think what I like him most in his Split Glass type roles where he gets to go like really wild and out there. I think that I think when he got kind of put in a leading man type scenario, and I think often his movies where he's the leading man, I think those are his most boring roles. I like just the fact that he was like Professor X. Like I think that's just like kind of like a thankless, really boring role, and you kind of need like a Patrick Stewart to do that. Because although I don't know, I don't remember from his X-Men movies. Like, I mean, I liked him in them, but he wasn't really like the part that I remember from them. But then in Split and Glass, those are the things that I really love from him. And this movie was sort of on a line between that. I think later on, once he becomes more enmeshed in the Assassins, I started to buy him more and like his character more. But early on, I found him so annoying. And I think part of it is like he's supposed to be an annoying like guy who like is unhappy and he makes everyone else unhappy because like he doesn't know who he is. You know, like I think that's part of the point. But it gets to a point where it's
Wait,
just like
Paco, do you think that's the point of the movie? You think that despite there's this whole scene where he's getting beat and then he goes, I don't know who I am. I think that the movie, I think you're right about that.
I was gonna say when y'all were talking about the accent work and the choice not to have a vocal coach, I think he was like, no. The sound of the accent, regionally doesn't matter. The key thing is I need to be as annoying as I possibly can. I need my voice to be as grating as it possibly can be. I will also say to the thing of it makes more sense that you have James McAvoy in the back half of this movie. Another thing that like multiple people said, which I'm sure was a line that was fed to them as part of this like promotional behind the scenes thing, but so many people were like your everyman, average guy, James McAvoy.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the
He's
fuck?
just like us.
yeah.
I think we
Yeah.
I think we need to talk about for 1 second where he came from, because there is a Chicago connection there. He's on the original cast of Shameless. the British Shameless.
Oh,
which ended
interesting.
up being
I forgot about that.
Yeah, he was the
The lip character?
he was the lip character. No, not the lip character. The boyfriend.
Oh, he was the Justin Chatwin.
The Chatwin, exactly. Kyle, did you ever watch Shameless?
Y'all are speaking a language
British,
I don't understand.
the British or the American version?
Yeah, neither. I know that there are a lot of great actors who have come out of it. I know, everybody's very proud of Jeremy Allen White. And I know a lot of people who really love Emmy Lou Rossum. Is that her name?
Emmy Rossum.
Emmy Rossum. Yeah,
Shameless is
but
pretty.
I have never watched.
Shameless is pretty terrible, but everyone in Chicago watched the first 2 seasons at least. Like, so it's like everyone who was a teenager coming up in that, not even teenager. It just was like one of those shows where I maybe we have to cover it, Paco, because I think the representation of the city is probably pretty terrible, but I think like we have to cover it. It's a very important show in Chicago's, like, in the our coming of age. But he was in the British version, which I've never seen. But I think that's an interesting little Chicago connection. The movie that I know him from is Atonement, which is a year before Wanted, where he is doing, that sort of complex character thing. There's a lot of movies, or maybe it was Chronicles of Narnia that I knew him from when he was, what's the name of that? The goat guy. Tumnus.
Yep.
That's probably where I saw him first. Don't like that movie. Didn't like it when it came out. But I really liked the books of Narnia. So I was like a deep Narnia reader. So when that movie came out and was disappointing, I was very like, oh, I don't like anyone who's in this.
I really like that movie, actually.
I'm sure it's fine. I haven't gone back to rewatch it.
The fun fact about it, there was apparently an R-rated cut of it.
Really?
They showed Tumnus's dong.
It is not actually R-rated, but there is some home video release of it that has a warning or like a thing that says like, extended cut may not be suitable for viewers under 17, which is an R-rated movie. I have never been able to find it, and I feel like now I'm, this is a fever dream and I made it up, but I like distinctly remember seeing that at one point and being like, oh my God, I have to watch it. And then
what in the world could be R-rated? Spread that Aslan? Like, what are we talking about? What could be?
I mean, there's a big final battle. I assume they just went, harder on, I don't even know hard on decapitations. I'm sure there are none in the PG version, and they probably added some of those in. Or, delimbing of centaurs. There's stuff you could do.
Well, I think that there's a lot of like these side characters in Wanted who aren't famous actors, who are not movie stars, who pop. Like the knife guy and the guy who's beating him up, and seeing those people die is really awesome. I miss those style actors who are like, they don't have to be movie stars, but they just like have faces and they can like be gnarly in a scene. And I think that the Night Watch guy is kind of that for me in this movie, where it's just like, who's the guy who works at the bath who has all the rats? He's gonna have a face, and he doesn't have to be famous for you. He might be the biggest star in Russia, or like the knife guy is probably like huge in Spain or whatever he's from. I think that like it's interesting to have those guys who can like hold the screen for a little bit, who are like good actors, who could be gnarly. And Wanted's kind of full of those guys. Whereas like I think like Common, I feel like is the downside of that, where it's like that's sort of the modern thing where it's like you have to have someone who everyone recognizes.
I think Common has presence. I like Common in the movie. I think if Angelina Jolie is consciously making the choice to be a presence more than she has lines, I think Common is accidentally doing the best when he is just around and has presence.
What's the movie he did with Queen Latifah where it's like a rom-com?
Just Right, I think.
God, yeah, one of the worst performances. I'm just down on Common's acting career. Date Night, he's terrible in.
He's good in John Wick too.
No, he's not. He's
very
not good in John Wick 2.
2.
He's terrible in John
Yes,
Wick
he is.
2.
He's so good. No, he's good.
He's
I mean, I think this is maybe we are talking about line deliveries versus presence, and I do think
He has presence.
presence-wise,
Yeah.
and in terms of learning the combat and fighting Keanu Reeves,
Yeah.
I will not
No,
allow
no.
common and John Wick 2 slander.
I think you're right. I think you're right. I think he undeniably has presence. He is like one of the great rappers. I really love his work, and I think we should do Paco, you can cut this out if you don't want this in there. I think we should do a music videos episode because Common made some of the best Chicago music videos. So I'm not trying to just slander Common. I just don't think he works as an actor. And I'm less into John Wick 2, but
that's fair enough. I will also say, I think to your point about like these like side actors that pop, I think another aspect of this that makes it really hit for teenage boys is that that finale sequence especially feels very video game level.
100%.
And like there are these bosses that you have to face. There's the boss who does knives. There's the boss who does punching. Like, so I pro or con, I think it works. That feels very inspired by video games, which I know is a whole thing that I feel like in the 2000s was the equivalent of people in the 90s and 80s complaining, this is a music video, not a film.
Yeah. So there is a video game of Wanted, right?
Yeah, Wanted, Weapons of Fate.
My DVD copy of Wanted, the first thing on it is a trailer for the video game.
Oh, hell yeah.
I tried to find it on PC, but it doesn't exist on any gaming sites anymore.
Is there like a watch along? What are those called?
Playthroughs? Yeah, there are.
A playthrough?
There are. It doesn't look that fun, but I think playing it would probably be better. I don't know how much you can curve the bullets in the game. I don't know if like
that'd be like the whole thing where you like be able to like use the left
the joystick to control
the joystick to control.
Yeah, based on the trailer, you can definitely curve the bullets.
Okay, that's cool. I was gonna try and find it to play it before recording the podcast, but I unfortunately threw out my Xbox 360.
I think we need to talk about another side actor in this movie who becomes Timur's muse, which is Chris Pratt. I think this is right around the time, I'm sorry to clock who that guy is. I think this is right around when Parks and Rec is starting, right?
I think Parks and Rec started in like 2010.
Okay, when was
a little bit before?
When was Moneyball?
2011.
So yeah, so it's a little bit before when I knew who he was. And
it's
I
1 year before Parks and Rec is 2009.
Okay.
Yeah. So and it took him a little bit on Parks and Rec to get established as a character.
Yeah.
And I thought he what are your Chris Pratt feelings in this movie and then in general?
I mean, yeah, he's a weird guy. Or no, he's not. He's like incredibly boring. But like he's not weird at all. He's
Wish he was weirder.
I guess it's like during Parks and Rec, I loved I was also much younger, but I loved his character, and I think he does do really well in comedy situations. And he's kind of a guy, kind of like John Krasinski. He's kind of like the chud John Krasinski, where he just like forgot that he could be funny and just has decided to be like a buff conservative coded guy and everything, but like it's like the second he got fit for Guardians of the Galaxy, he like all his funny muscles went away to be replaced by just like, I don't know, being so boring. But I mean, that being said, his role in Wanted plays off his persona that he kind of had before he became an action guy. And I thought he was pretty good at being like an asshole who like thinks that Wesley is cool after he starts like killing people, Like I think like I bought his character, and I think generally he's funny in it, and it's really awesome when he gets hit in the head with a keyboard by James McAvoy. He was also, this was after, I didn't watch this till many years later, but I think right before this he had been on OC for a few episodes as kind of like he was like a weird like hippie character in that, which is not what he's like in any other movies. What about you, Kyle? What do you think? What do you think of him?
Uh, I well, just to add to your the beauty of the keyboard moment, when he hits him, a bunch of keys fly off of it, and with Chris Pratt's tooth as the U, it spells out "fuck you," which is, just so cool.
It's so
Um,
funny.
and then that is like honestly kind of the main thing I have to say about Chris Pratt being in this movie at this point is that so many reviews on Letterboxd, many of which I have liked, all of which have made me chuckle, are just about the joy of seeing Chris Pratt get hit in the face. Uh, so I think that kind of says everything about him in this movie, is that he's there to play someone who gets hit in the face, and everybody's happy to see him get hit in the face. How much of that is, performance? How much of that is, almost 20 years later, we all fucking hate this guy? Who's to say?
And
But
20 years later,
it
he's the star of Timur
works.
Beckmoff's new movie, which we all went to go
Yeah.
see. Do we want to talk about Mercy?
Some Mercy talk.
I mean, I'm I'm happy to make the switch. I have one more if we're gonna start talking about form, one note on Wanted that I just like really brought me great joy
Please.
this time, that I don't know. I'm sure I had noticed before. But during the car chase, which also like really is so similar to Dark Knight. Like they're
Yes.
both whacker car chases.
Yeah.
But one of the characters like runs over a stand for cat food, and they drop in a meow into the like sound
mix.
mix for
That's-
the effect of that. There's this like the real world sound of a sign getting hit and a meow that happens.
That's
And I'm just
amazing.
like, hell yeah, man. Like and I think that's like, like I said, I do think that's Timur's nerd thing becomes form. So that I just to give us some form of transition to Mercy, besides Chris Pratt, so that we can focus on the positives.
That's fair. There's two things going on with this. There's Timur's over excess thing, right? And then there's this other undercurrent, which is that he's obsessed with the way that we interact with each other, right? He's obsessed with screens. He's like one of the proponents of screened life. Where do you guys see this starting for him? Like, where did you do any research into this? I didn't. Do you see it in any of his other work, where his obsession with screen life comes from?
I'm saying the same thing too many times. I
No, say
do
it.
think that it is just that he like wants to play with form. I think Night Watch and Day Watch are so much of him, maybe not playing with camera that much, but like even like the doing cool shit with the subtitles. And I think he is, very much, you can see it in Night Watch and Day Watch, and like a bit less in Wanted, that he is like pushing up against how far he can go with special effects. And I do think that he probably, who's to say, is like, oh, okay, special effects, I've done all the fun stuff I can do with that. What is a new frontier of filmmaking that I can play with?
And that's what it
and
feels
I think
like.
that's what it is.
I love screen life. Paco and I have been obsessed with screen life since it started to become a thing. I think Unfriended was maybe the first one I saw.
Yeah.
But I will watch any movie that is, if anyone doesn't know what we're talking about, screen life are those movies where it's literally a computer screen and that's the frame and you're watching things happen on the screen in real time. And for Paco and I don't know what year you were born, Kyle, and you don't need to reveal that here, but we're the exact age of the teenagers in Unfriended.
Yeah.
And I was so fascinated after watching that movie, a movie that did not get very great reviews, and wasn't loved. I was fascinated by how much that movie reflected, not my experience because I didn't cyberbully anyone, but the experience of using the computer, of being on computer. And I think that is something that is, like you're saying, It's working with the form, and it's creating a different visual language, and changing your experience of what it is to watch a movie. So that was the first one I tracked.
Yeah, I guess kind of to bring it back a little bit to the Timur and the fact that he's like, he's not like super famous or he's not like a name in the United States, I would say, outside of like film circles, and even that outside of people like us who like stupid action movies. But I do think he's like, to a certain extent, kind of on the cutting edge of technology, and I think something, I don't know if you watched it. One of the featurettes, Kyle, was about like the VFX in the movie, and one of the special effects guy, or one of the VFX guys who worked on it, was kind of like, he kept like asking us, like, he kept like pushing us to like do these things that we like weren't even sure we were capable of. You know, like I think he was always like, I think he's really good at pushing what, like, however much budget he has to like push like the extent of like what he's able to create. But yeah, with Screen Life, Unfriended was definitely, I think, the first one I watched. It's not really the first Screen Life, I don't think. I think there's like a few predecessors, but I think it kind of like established the form. Timur, I guess I don't think we explicitly said it, but he produced it, did not direct it. I don't know why he didn't direct it.
But he's like the main creative force behind that being pushed.
He's like produced like almost all of them, pretty much. I think there's a few. Like I think he produced Searching, the John Cho one. He might have produced Missing as well. He's directed a few. Profile.
The only one I know not involved with is Host. Like the only like big deal one that's not, an indie that was made for $5,000, which actually Host is that, but like the only one that broke out of the, genre festival circuit, that I know he was not involved in is Host, which means pretty much every other Screen Life movie he touched. So,
but we Paco and I have been watching these movies, and I have like I had a good time with Searching. I had more of a good time with Missing than I was expecting. But there is something that is lost when they try to make those movies more entertaining. When they try to change the language of the screen that is in front of you. And for me, Unfriended and some of these other indie projects are legitimately just watching someone use the computer, which I understand is not as riveting. Like the Searching is directed by the Google guy. He did that famous
Anish
Google
Chaganty.
Yes. And he does a lot of punch-ins, right? He does like a lot of like, we're watching the whole screen and then we'll watch just the search bar and then we'll zoom into a corner. And for me, I understand why you do that for Hollywood entertainment, but I think that where you end up with Mercy is we're just getting further and further away from just the experience of sitting on your laptop. And Mercy is literally trying to like rush through screens and creating screens are now 3D and they're coming at you. They're rushing behind you. And I do think it's Timur trying to be like, well, every movie can be Screen Life. And I'm like, whoa. I kind of like when they're stripped down. I kind of like when they're, I don't know if you guys feel the same.
I don't know how I feel, honestly. I think I love any we're pushing the form thing that's just gonna work for me because of what it is doing, not necessarily of what it is. It is very funny that you say all of this. So Jeremy, did you see that he like wrote rules for what Screen Life is when they made Unfriended?
That's amazing. No, I didn't
he
see
wrote
that.
he wrote like a dogma style thing for Screen Life. And I only remember two of the things, and it may only be like a 3 or 4 point list, but two of the things I remember are the like, the camera is the desktop or something. Like there's no movement. Everything is what it is, so that someone watching this on their laptop may have the moment of like trying to move the mouse or something, right? Like you get that level of immersion, we can call it, if you just make the screen the full desktop. So that's one. Two, which again adds to that immersion thing, is that it has to play out in real time. there can be no cuts through time. And those go out the window pretty immediately because
Yeah.
by the time he makes Profile, which I think is his first like directing screen life movie, he's 100%. He may not be cutting in, but he's definitely cutting through time.
Yeah.
Been a while since I've seen Profile.
Yeah. I just watched it for this and I was not very gripped by it, but there's stuff about it that I think is really compelling, and the use of the computer and the creativity. He so clearly loves the form, like you're saying. And I think Searching is the same way, where I'm like, oh, there's so clearly like that director is using his own, visual language. Or I was like, oh, it's cool that there's another director who has another visual style within this form. And then Missing, I just love saying, stop scrolling. Stop scrolling. That is always going to be the funniest thing in the world to me. I do want to see like 6 more of them. Did you guys see the Bekmambetov quote about the Wanted sequel?
No.
So he said, because he got this big 5-picture deal from Universal, which I think Mercy is a part of, and he came to fame with Wanted, and he said that maybe we'll do the sequel in Screen Life. I cannot imagine an assassin in today's world would run around with a gun. Why? He'll use drones. He'll use computer technology, probably. You don't need to bend bullets anymore. You need to bend ideas.
So true.
So we might be getting a Wanted Screen Life movie. And you know what, Timur?
Oh, no.
I support it.
Oh God. Woof. just to like I want to I want to keep talking about Screen Life, but I do also want to note, and I don't know that we'll have a more natural transition to it, but he's also doing other stuff besides Screen Life. So he both for directing and producing. He produced Hardcore Henry, which is the action movie that takes place entirely in first person, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Many people think it is, crime to call that a movie. And he then directed a couple of years ago a movie called V2 Escape from Hell, which is a World War II like dogfighting movie that I think is also, again, sort of like his earlier film from the 90s, a bit of Russian military propaganda. But this was released in 2 ways. It was released in, normal widescreen for film theaters and for people's TVs, and also in vertical. It was like filmed for and released in vertical.
Now we're talking.
Which I think is fucking incredible. Yeah, I was like,
so cool.
I did so much looking to try to see if I could find it, and I did find it on shout out OK.ru, but it was the widescreen one, and I was like, I'm not fucking doing that.
Why would I watch it like that?
It's not the real shit. Which then, so this is where, so that is not a Screen Life movie. But he did also then produce, I think this is older, but he produced a Snapchat original show that was a zombie show called Dead of Night. That is Screen Life. That is also in vertical. So like I watched, they, released the first episode on YouTube to get you hooked. And it's like, good. It's like compelling, but also it is like the form fucking works of watching this on your phone and watching someone like switch between Instagram and Snapchat and texting.
That's amazing, Kyle. You're speaking my language. Yeah. I love that there's someone out here who's not trying to make it more cinematic to watch a movie of people, and like it's like, let's adapt it for the way people watch things, right?
Yes.
And so much of like, I don't want you to make a Scorsese movie easier for me to watch on my phone. Like you don't need to make someone who makes widescreen entertainment. It's you shouldn't watch everything on your phone. That's fucking stupid. But I love that there's this gonzo, Russian filmmaker, Kazakh filmmaker who's out there making these Snapchat originals in vertical. That's so interesting.
I don't
and
think
weird.
He directed that either, but yeah, it's like he's definitely the force behind making that a thing. Yeah,
I love that exists, and like I love that you have Soderberghs and now Danny Boyle, Anthony Dodd Mantle, or whatever, shooting on iPhones. Like,
Yeah.
don't make your movies try to look like film. Like, make them look digital. Like, use the form. I love that there's people who are pushing these things along. Do you know about the Vertical Film Festival?
No.
There's a film festival where things are shot in vertical, and they actually like have like, it looks like the obelisk or the from 2001.
Yeah.
Not the obelisk. What's that called?
Isn't that what it's called? That's what I'd call it.
Yeah, I thought that was what it's called.
They screen the movies vertical, and I think
Yeah.
that is so cool. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, if and there's so many things that can be shot vertical that, like, that's a different frame. You know what I
Monolith.
mean? It's monolith,
Monolith.
not
Yeah.
obelisk. Thank you. Everyone was just yelling at me for that minute that I was talking about the
There's
vertical.
someone listening to this in his car and got into a car crash when he said that.
Exactly. This fucking asshole doesn't even know the thing from 2001, but is talking about how vertical filmmaking is the future. No, and Music Box people know that I've gone on this rant before. So you're talking my language, Kyle. I taught high school. I taught high schoolers, and I made them shoot on iPhone. And I was like, don't try to make your iPhone movie look like the way that your DSLR does or your cinema camera. Like, you strap your phone to something weird, and they like put it in the they put their phone in the washer machine. You know, they like they got really creative with it. They put it on their on the door of their locker. They understood what the assignment was, and I think Timor does as well.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that there's also like, there's not just the form thing all the time. I do think, or at least let's say he's using content to argue for form. I think there's a reason that the Not Screen Life vertical movie is about plain dogfights. Like, it is about, you know, flying and height and things being above each other. So yeah, and I do think the thing that you said, and I, you know, said something similar in my review of Mercy, is that like, it is him making a case for screen life, even though the movie is not fully screen life itself. I think it is him making a case for this form, given how hard he goes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think about, I have several paths I could go down. I guess maybe I'll defend Mercy a bit. I think that what I liked about Mercy is that he uses so many different, in the movie, he uses so many different screens, and the ways that we, like the fact that like everything is a camera now, and he's kind of like pushing that to its logical limit. And like, I don't think the movie is like smart in any way. Like, the script is really bad. And I didn't love every part of the movie, but I think that's just an element of society that's ripe for artistic representation and for like thematic, like, you know, elaboration to a certain extent. Like I really liked all like the police body cam footage, you know, like all those scenes, and just like all the, like the fact that you're just like seeing everything from so many different angles, and like what that allows him to do. It does annoy me that at like the last like 5 minutes, like they stop doing that. Like pretty much like almost the whole movie is like only through like whatever can be recorded, and then at the very end it becomes kind of just like a normal movie. But other than that, I don't know. I think that's the thing I like. I don't think that that's necessarily antithetical to his initial fascination with screen life and the more traditional like unfriended type stuff.
Yeah, which I want to be clear, I am positive on Mercy. You don't need to defend it from me. The thing that I found most exciting and interesting is actually kind of, if antithetical is too strong, but like not possible if you were to do a normal screen life movie, which is the like layering of screens. Like that, you know, so many shots in that movie of just Rebecca Ferguson or Chris Pratt talking have like maybe not half the screen, but a portion of the screen is covered with this like semi-translucent other screen that they are working with some, you know, evidence for their case that they're building, that is just like over them. And there are other moments where there are so many of those little screens open that they're, you know, layering on top of each other, and you can kind of see bits and pieces of all of them. and it, I do think it is headache inducing, especially when you add the 3D on top of
Oh
it.
God, the 3D
Um,
was so bad.
but
I
like,
really
I
couldn't stand
just
that.
from a again, it's not necessarily what it is, it's what it's doing. What that is doing, I think, is like very cool and very exciting.
Wait, wait,
So
wait. I'm sorry. What is cool and exciting about like the
just the layering of visual information,
okay.
that it's not just this is a screen within this world that these characters are interacting with, but
Mm,
that it is a screen through which you are seeing the character. Like we are looking, it's a like straight shot of Chris Pratt's face through the counter that tells him how long his trial has left, or like through his daughter's face while they are on a FaceTime call, so that you can see both of their faces, but you're looking through hers to see his.
yeah,
um
that's a good point.
it's like it's obnoxious, and I don't know that there's anything to it besides I can see screens through screens, but that in itself, I was like, I don't know, man, this is new and exciting to me. So
I hear you. I did not like Mercy. Like I wish it was better or worse. I'm like caught in that in between right now. Um, because everyone's like ready to make fun of it, and I think in a mean spirited way, and then it sort of like came out and made some money and wasn't as bad as people thought it would be. So I feel like it's just going to be forgotten. Um, but I feel like I I understand that form matters, but I was like, I don't logically understand how this plot wise is makes any sense. Like, why would you make the 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 room that the trial's happening in, why would they be able to experience that? Like, why is like the wind rushing against him? Like, other than it's cool to watch, I was like very lost in like what are the sci-fi rules of this world, and I feel like that's something where like with Daywatch and Nightwatch, it seemed like something he was very. I didn't watch Daywatch. I don't know why I keep mentioning Daywatch. With Nightwatch, it's something that like even if I don't understand what's going on, someone has control over the rules of this world, and I really didn't feel like I understood the rules of Mercy or that I cared about the rules. And then like the pivot of it being like this sort of middling stance on AI and being like dumb Minority Report, I was just like,
yes.
and I also think like it has a disastrous lead performance, and like Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, where I'm like, if you have, and here's where I'm going to bring back the point I was making earlier. If you have James McAvoy in the Chris Pratt role, this is a 6 out of 10 movie for me. Where I'm like, all the stuff that I think doesn't work plot wise, I won't care as much if I'm like engaged. And I never believe Chris Pratt once. Like I don't believe him in any direction. Whereas Rebecca Ferguson is electric. She's on fire. She's engaging and warm and completely different than I would expect like an AI performance to be. You would expect an AI performance to be cold and calculated and all these things, but instead she's like adding layers of interesting humanity. I'm like, oh, that's a sci-fi concept right there. Does it get explored? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this is I can't say that this is true. I do not know. But the first time I saw a trailer for Mercy was the first and so far only time I was in a 4DX theater. So it does seem possible to me that the movie where basically Chris Pratt is in a 4DX chair was somewhat crafted with 4DX in mind.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. I just wish that they use that at least like have a plot purpose for it. Like if you can if there's an experiment like experiential side to him being in the chair, that doesn't come up. Like it's just something that's I was like, why would you make your courtroom 40 like other than like at least like do like a scene where it's like he's having his last meal, then you know what I mean, like then like you're in the executioner's chair, you could do the final meal in with, you know what I mean, or like the experience of hugging your loved ones, or like they didn't explore the death, the death penalty side of it at all, which I was looking for the movie to do. I was like, oh, this is going to be kind of interesting, and instead it just becomes I thought it would have been cool if Chris Pratt did it, and it was like it was all him trying to like figure out a reason not, but that the movie was never going to be that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think Dumb Minority Report is fair, and I like truly I have no argument for it besides form is interesting. Paco and I talked a bit about this because we saw it together, that I actually kind of love when um movies are so horribly written that they, like have a character explaining the twist. Like that, loops back around to become fun for me. And Mercy certainly has some of that, but I think the main selling point for me certainly was it's Timur fucking around with screens. That's why I'm here. I don't care what the reasoning is that you have for that happening. That is in and of itself a reason for me to go see this movie.
Makes sense. I also may have a vendetta against this movie. I was once on set for a short film in Champaign, Illinois, with an actor from the movie, who in Mercy, who then yelled at a group of PAs and myself on that set. So I'm just gonna point that out.
No. Well, fair enough. I can't tell you not to have personal. Not to like,
This is why I'm not a critic, Kyle, because I'd be like, "Fuck, Paco, bleep that name out."
Yeah. Fuck Chris Pratt. Yeah, I can't believe you did that.
Anyway, I felt like nothing leaving the screening, although I did get a cool Mercy hat out of it, and also a little flashlight. Did you guys get the flashlight?
Oh no.
I got like a little mini flashlight because Kyle and Paco were professionals and were invited to the screening to cover it. And I looked up free Mercy screening Minneapolis and signed up for a screening to cover it with you guys here.
Yeah.
But I thought it was very funny that I was able to search that and get it.
Yeah.
I love that it was the same night as the press in Chicago.
That's why I looked it up, because I was like, there must be doing a bunch of these, because it was a press screening,
Yeah.
and then they would also have audience in around. I should have worn my Mercy hat. I think I left it in the other room.
Yeah,
but-
I will also sort of off the point of Anish Chaganty, who directs Searching, is the Google guy. Our screening was, I think, similarly there was a press row, but it was a let's build hype screening. And different rows had different reservations for different groups. And one of those rows was Google. So that was interesting, and I think maybe speaks to the movie's stance on AI. Who's
Yep.
to say? But
A bizarre choice by the movie to be anti-AA but pro-AI. It was very weird.
yeah,
But anyway, I think that, we all agree the sequel to Wanted should be Screen Life.
Yes, I think so.
sure, yeah.
Is there anything else you want to bring up about Mercy or Wanted?
I mean, I honestly, I thought we would spend more time talking about the Whacker car chase, but
No,
I'm
let's
good
talk
to
about
not.
it. Let's do it, because I agree. There's so much about the movie that is it's a very strange mix, but I think that there are these like great sequences, visual sequences. The chase you were talking about, is that start with him being in the parking lot and she whips the car around and picks him up. Just cool.
Yes. Yeah, and then she's I mean, I don't know if it was actually Angelina or if it was a double, but again, you can see it, yes, in the official making of, but also in these videos that people took on their flip phones of a woman leaning back on the hood of a Viper as cargo truck chases them.
I think it was her.
And I just okay, yeah, I would not be surprised. That makes sense. I just I obviously, the reason I bring it up again is because it's extremely fucking Chicago of this movie. But it's also just it's the same thing that The Dark Knight does, and I'm so curious about how far apart these were. because I have to imagine shutting down Whacker is a big fucking deal and, causes traffic chaos. And so that they did that twice within the same year is wild to me. Um, yeah, that
I found a, I don't think I have it linked, but I found I think it was a Sun Times article, or maybe it was a Tribune article that starts off with quotes of people complaining that there was so many roads cut off that summer because of Wanted and The Dark Knight filming at the same time.
okay, so they are like truly at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's okay, yeah.
And
Which, I mean, that speaks to how in and of the city the film is.
yeah,
Yeah.
Dark Knight did permanent damage to Lower Wacker.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, they
Yeah, because they flipped the truck, right?
they flipped the truck. There's multiple things that when we do our Dark Knight episode, I have a whole recording that I did of the stuntman and the whole production team, the below the line team did at Facets. They did a conversation, and they talked about the fact that they permanently damaged Lower Wacker, and the city was cool about it. But I think that's funny that Wanted then was like, "Can we do something too?" And they're like,
Yeah.
I guess, but like the big scene where where the car hits the side of the bus and flips over and then starts driving again, which is awesome, doesn't happen in Wacker. I like that.
Yeah, right. That's a different location. Yeah. Yeah, which I do also think it's funny that I can't remember if it's Night Watch or Day Watch, but one of them has I'm not sure if it's a big rig or just a large truck do that same flip that happens in The Dark Knight, but of course it's like fully CGI. But that was fun to see. Also, I don't know if either of y'all caught that in the Office space, Chris Pratt has a Chicago poster.
Yes,
so
I did.
I saw that. It just says Chicago.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Not World's Fair, not anything.
Not anything specific, just
Chicago.
Chicago, which is funny. And also Angelina Jolie in the there's like a scene where they're in sort of lunchroom. Angelina Jolie is drinking out of a Chicago Bears cup. And I was like, I clocked that right away. I was like, yeah, get me some Chicago, props.
Yeah.
I love it.
Is the train that they jump on, is that like the Brown line? What train do you think that is?
Because it has the big curve.
Yeah.
I think it's the Brown line.
Nice.
I mean, yeah, I feel like it's any loop line. I don't know my trains that well, but like, yeah, that is also just it's very weird. I am from LA, and so I do the obnoxious thing all the time when people are watching movies with me, where I go, "Hey, that's where I'm from," and just like this, like the amount of times that you can do that for Chicago with this is wild. And I also love that, like, so like obviously they use Whacker, but that they like, I don't know if it, was written in whatever, but like the fact that there is the curving bullet thing. And then they have this sequence that is extremely fucking Chicago of being on top of this train that is going to take this perfect like right angle turn. Obviously it's not that, but like, and that he, after having hesitated, needs to like curve the bullet back around that curve that the train has taken. I don't know. It just feels like they really did work of enmeshing the movie with the location.
I agree.
Like they gave a shit, I guess, is really
I agree with you completely.
the short
Kyle,
version.
we haven't asked you what your Chicago origin story is. That's something that we usually ask at the top. At the end here, do you want to talk a little bit about your Chicago origin story?
Sure. Yeah. I moved to Chicago at the really, one of the best times anyone could have moved anywhere. I moved here at the end of January 2020.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So that was really, really great to be with my now ex, who also, just to shout her out, is Nicola McCafferty, who's the After Dark programmer for SIF. And yeah, so moved here and then lockdown happened. And it was very funny getting questions from my mom for basically a year that was like, oh, are you like, liking your new home city? Are you getting acclimated to your new home city? And I was like, Mom, I've been in the same apartment for a year. Like, I would love to be getting acclimated to my new home city, but I'm not allowed outside. So yeah, so it took a while for me to actually get out and start exploring Chicago. Um, but I pretty quickly became attached to the music box, and then a friend was like, hey, I hear Facets does trivia, and only more recently have I become a Siskel goer, but like that, and then that doing those things has really uh made me feel more at home here, as having those communities. Paco and I were talking about this a little bit. Went to War and Peace yesterday at the Siskel, and
The
it
social
truly
event
was.
of the year. Everyone
Yeah,
was
exactly.
there.
That's yeah. A friend of mine called it the social event of the season a
Yeah.
while ago, and that
My
truly ended up
letterbox was
being
all War
true.
and Peace logs. I was like,
Yeah,
what the fuck's
exactly.
going
So
on?
it was like really lovely to like be there, with friends, and go chat with like different friends during the intermissions, and also like talk to new people you've never talked to before, because you're all there to watch a 7.5, not 7.5, excuse me, only 7 hour long Russian movie. So yeah, it certainly took a while for me to get to know Chicago beyond the walls of an apartment. But I feel like now it's very much home.
I will say, Kyle, that is deeply relatable as someone who's trying to acclimate to Minneapolis right now.
Sure.
I
Yes.
I will say that. But just to fold in this conversation in with the question we usually ask at the end of every podcast, Kyle, in your time here, what are some Chicago restaurants, some Chicago eateries that you recommend?
Sure. So like I said, most of my life revolves around these theaters. The first one, which I go to, not every time I go to the Music Box, but many, many, many times, is Kai Sushi, which is just down Southport a bit, like past the Dairy Queen. They have an incredible udon that I get most times I go there, and then sometimes when I'm feeling a bit more flush, I get their sushi, which is also fantastic. So highly recommend going there. It's wonderful to catch a matinee and then go get lunch over there. And then I do also want to shout out Vegan Plate, which is almost exactly across the street from Facets, which is a vegan Thai place that is really fantastic. And I can say that with confidence. I have dragged friends there who have never had vegan food before, and we're like, no, this really hit. So those are my two. Next time you're going to the Music Box or Facets and need to eat before or after, I would highly recommend both of those spots.
Well, thank you so much, Kyle, for coming on and talking Timor and talking Wanted. Is there anywhere that people can find your work that you can direct them to?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I am, regularly reviewing stuff at the Chicago Reader and at Screen Anarchy. I've done the work of making my name the same on all social media platforms, so it's another Kyle L. I will say I mostly only really use Letterboxd and sometimes Instagram at this point. I should maybe try and get back onto Blue Sky, but I don't know. If I'm gonna look at a screen, I might as well be watching a Screen Life movie rather than actually interacting with it.
That's a good
So
part. You should get on Snapchat so you can watch the entirety of that
watch Dead
series.
of Night. Yeah.
Yeah,
They should make like a slow cinema screen life movie that's like just someone's screen like as they're doing work.
Hell yeah.
so you're mostly
Hell yeah.
not using it.
Yeah.
One
That's
of one
good.
of the I think one of the movies that played Settle In is basically like someone's shift at their job at a bowling alley or
Nice.
something like that. So yeah, I can see it. I can see the Office drone version of that.
Wanted to.
Yeah.
That wanted to the assassin office drone. It has come back around and now Wesley's back in an office, just piloting a drone from there.
Yeah,
Fucking hates it.
It's Janice's life now.
Yeah.
Um, all right. Thank you so much, Kyle, for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much to Kyle Logan for that great conversation. We see Kyle leaving the door now.
All right, bye Kyle.
Is there anything else about Wanted that we didn't get to in the conversation that you wanted to discuss?
Just some like small points that I'm thinking of now. I think it's really interesting that we talked a lot with Kyle about how This movie takes a lot from Fight Club and like a lot of the movies from like the late 90s, early 2000s about like disaffected men, young men like working as office drones and like how boring their life is, like kind of like end of history like type shit, like, oh, there's nothing going on in the world, like I'm miserable, I fuck my girlfriend, stuff like that. But this movie came out in 2008 at the height of the Great Recession.
I know. Well, I think this is definitely a script that was written in 99, right? Like,
well, the comic book came out in 2003, so they probably wrote it
Yeah.
in like 2004 or something. But
yeah, but that's weird. I don't know.
it's like, yeah, man, like just wait a year. Like you're not gonna have this office job. Don't worry.
Appreciate the office job. That's really funny. I didn't like the rat scenes. Those are scary.
Because you're scared of rats, or because you felt bad that they were dying.
Little both, little column A, little column B. How did he collect all those rats?
Yeah, I don't know. He
The
must.
peanut-
There must.
the
There should have been a
peanut butter?
montage.
There should have been a montage.
I mean, this
There's
is
like
Rat
a scene where
City.
it is Rat City. It's right. All he had to do was go underneath Wrigley Field where all the rats go to
Yeah.
nest. La 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 la. I don't like the dad.
The main guy, the bad guy.
Oh, we didn't talk about Terrence Stamp.
Oh yeah, I forgot. I completely forgot.
He's
really
awesome.
good. He's awesome.
Do you hear that, Paco? That's the stamp of approval.
The Terrence stamp of approval.
That's the Terrence stamp of approval.
Yeah, when he showed up, I was like, damn, they got him too. Like that's crazy.
I think this is a part of Terrence Stamp's career where he was just in movies getting paychecks.
Yeah, he's awesome.
It's not that. Yeah, he's awesome.
He's like the most handsome British actor in my opinion.
Yeah, striking.
Yeah.
He's auto gravitas as well. He's that Morgan Freeman effect.
Yeah. I guess a couple small things from the behind the scenes featurettes that I forgot to bring up. They're very funny to watch because, or at least like the main featurette is really funny to watch because they just make Morgan Freeman describe the plot of Wanted and like describe the lore. And it's just like hearing him like talk about it like it's like a real thing that happened is so funny.
That's amazing.
And then here's two funny quotes from James McAvoy from those the featurettes. One of them was, "I'm not used to seeing someone like me in these roles."
What?
Yeah.
What does he mean by that?
I don't know. I guess it's like he was saying it like, oh, usually like in these types of movies, like they get kind of buff guys, but it's like Tobey Maguire is Spider-Man. Like, what are you talking about?
I think he literally means I'm not used to seeing me on screen because I didn't get these parts before.
Yeah. That's probably
Now I'm seeing me.
Yeah. And the other funny quote I have written down is, "I'd rather eat dog poo than be in a gym." So he did not like to work out.
McAvoy?
Yeah.
He's so buff now.
I know. Just like you have to be buff now if you're a guy in Hollywood. It's crazy.
Yeah, they made Chris Pratt buff.
Yeah, they took out all his funny juice. Do you have any final thoughts on the movie?
No, I think that this movie was very important to me at one period in my life. I found the experience of watching it very entertaining and it passed the time very well, but I cannot deny that there's stuff that catches in your throat while you're watching it. Especially the girlfriend stuff and the boss stuff. I think that is pretty irritating and not even in that transgressive of a way. It's like very not clever. Like the bullet going through the donut as she's eating in the car, and the girlfriend stuff in general is just a bummer. But outside of that, I thought that the performances are all really good, that the action is very entertaining. It was funny watching the works of Timur. So that was interesting to watch this. I think this is his best movie.
Yeah, I guess it kind of has to be.
Or maybe it could be Night Watch.
Yeah.
But I think this is better. And yeah, I would probably give it 4 bullets curved.
Yeah, I think like I mentioned at the beginning of our conversation with Kyle, I thought I had seen this movie, but turns out I haven't. I thought it was pretty fun. Reading the comics definitely made me like it more, I think, because like I saw how horrible and like trashy those were. And like honestly, like yeah, I know that, like this movie is kind of edgy and like has bad taste, but like compared to the comics, it's like so tame that I was kind of like, it didn't like that stuff barely bothered me. Yeah, the action's great. I think my problem with it kind of like loses me in the second half once they go to like Prague, you know, like all the Europe stuff kind of, I think maybe just partially because it's like I'm watching this for a Chicago movie, and like the fact that you're just like in Europe now, like I don't like why, like I guess I think it was probably just cheap to film there, but like it was that stuff just didn't grab me in the same way. I think it also had some of the more CGI scenes didn't grab me that much. But overall, I mean, it's a fun watch. The dialogue is kind of horrendous sometimes, but that's kind of what you sign up for with this type of movie. If I had to rate it out of 4 stars, I'd probably rate it 4 fuck yous. What the fuck are you doing? What's the last
you
line?
doing with your life?
Yeah. What's his last line in the movie? The fuck have you done lately? That was pretty good.
And then what's the song at the end?
I don't know.
I become so blind. No, it's not that, but it's something like that.
They should have had a Linkin Park song at the end of this movie. That would have been awesome. But yeah, it's a fun movie. I don't know. I will definitely watch it again someday. And I think anyone who likes to kind of turn off their brain and watch a little dumb guy movie, I think it's good. It's kind of like Harry Potter for like unemployed guys.
Let's leave it at that. Please rate, review, subscribe. Give us 5 stars for 4 stars. Let's bring that back. Let's get visibility going. Share on social media. If you got this far on the podcast, you enjoyed what you were listening to. So give us a shout out. Share this with your friends, with your dumbest friend, or at least your friend who is able to handle dumb content the best.
Yes.
And keep an eye out for our next couple episodes.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
Please be considerate when talking on your phone or listening to electronic devices.